What's going on, Coldwater Nation? It's Geoff, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how I like to tie a Green Drake Wulff for our fly of the month for the month of July. Originally designed by Lee Wulff to imitate the mid to late summer hatches of Green Drake mayflies, this little bushy pattern is just a good general pattern to fish whenever you have no idea what the fish are taking that day. Without further ado, let's head over to the bench and get started on tying a Green Drake Wulff.
Yeah.
There he goes.
Oh my god, look at that! Look at that toe!
The squirmy worm is an effective and very deadly fly.
What's up, guys? My name's Brian,
And I'm Geoff.
and you're watching Coldwater. Let's rip some lips.
This video is brought to you in part by Upstate Excursions and by Black Dog Outdoor Sports. I will start by putting a size 14 2x shank nymph streamer hook into my vise with the shank nice and level. Then I will take my black 8/0 thread and start my thread wraps about a quarter of the way down the shank of the hook from the hook eye. After making a few wraps, I will grab my scissors and snip off the tag end of my thread. Then I will strip off a pinch of stiff grizzly colored fibers from a hackle feather. Keeping the tips of those fibers aligned, I will measure them to be about a shank in length before tying them in with a few pinch wraps followed by a few more wraps of thread as I work my thread down the shank towards the bend of the hook. Once I have the tail fiber secured, I will grab a length of gold colored wire and tie that in just above the tail of the fly by taking wraps up the shank of the hook all the way to the eye of the hook, and then taking wraps down the shank, leaving my thread just a wrap or two in front of the tail of the fly. Next, I will grab a pinch of grayish green dry fly dubbing and create a thin dubbing noodle a few inches in length before taking wraps with the dubbing noodle up the shank of the hook, creating an even taper to the body of the fly. Now, I will grab 2 stiff grizzly hackle feathers and align the tips of those feathers before measuring the feathers so that the tips of the feathers are about a hook shank in length, much like an Adam's fly. After measuring the tips to be about the size that I want for the fly, I'll take wraps of thread behind the tips of the feathers as well as in front of the feathers to bind them down to the shank, as well as hold the tips in a vertical fashion to the body of the fly before snipping off the excess. With the excess now removed, I'll begin to take some crossing figure 8 wraps to hold the wings about 30 degrees from one another, as well as help control some of the errant fibers created by the bending of the feather tips into the vertical position. Afterwards, I will take wraps behind the wings to cover up the butt ends of the feathers I cut away previously. With that all set, I'll grab the gold wire I tied in a while ago and take open wraps up the body of the fly to create some segmentation on the dubbed body of the fly. Then I'll secure the wire in place with a few tight crossing wraps before helicoptering off the excess wire and then covering any sharp edges with a few more wraps of thread. Next, I will grab my grizzly colored whiting cape and pluck a hackle feather from the cape that has fibers about 1.5 times the hook gap of the hook. Then I will strip away the webbing as well as about an 1/8 inch of the stiffer fibers from the bottom of the feather so that I have about an 1/8 inch of the feather stem to take wraps on to secure it to the fly. Once I have secured the grizzly colored hackle feather to the shank and left my thread towards the eye of my hook, I will take roughly 5 or so wraps behind the wings and about 5 or so wraps in front of the wings to really build up a bushy body for the fly before taking a handful of wraps of thread to secure the hackle feather to the shank. Afterwards, I will snip off the excess hackle feather as well as any errant fibers that got trapped when securing the hackle feather to the shank of the hook. Then I will grab my whip finishing tool and make a 6-turn whip finish to the head of the fly before carefully snipping away my thread. Lastly, I will add a dab of head cement to the wraps at the head of the fly to really make a secure connection so this fly will continue to catch me fish for a long time. And that's all there is to tying a Green Drake Wulff. If you enjoyed this fly tying tutorial and you want to see more like this one, leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a new video. That's all for now. Tight lines, everybody.